Steve DeWitt is a highly acclaimed author known for his captivating storytelling and insightful narratives. With his latest book, Bush Brothers, he once again demonstrates his ability to weave together a gripping tale. The book takes readers on a journey through the lives of two brothers set in the backdrop of a small town. The story unravels with a deep exploration of their relationship, their shared experiences, and the challenges they face. Well, the author joins us virtually to tell us more. Steve, a very good morning to you. Warm welcome to Morning Live. I mean, what is the inspiration behind writing Bush Brothers?
Good morning. Thank you. Bush Brothers is a story that's been coming a long time in my life. It has to do with my military service long ago, 40 years ago, at a time in South Africa's history which was very different. I was a conscript. I was conscripted, inducted into the South African Army from school. The authorities came into our classrooms when I was 16 and found myself being sent off to war the minute I left school virtually, when I was 17, and being sent far away up to what was called the border war in those days, fighting against SWAPO, which was the liberation movement of Namibia, and also participating in the war in southern Angola. So a very difficult experience for many men of my generation. And I've been mulling over it for a long time, and I felt that the time was right for the book to come out.
Mm-hmm. Speak to us about the lives of these not so ordinary soldiers and the bonds that they form in this place that they find themselves in.
You know, there were a remarkable wide variety of characters. We were 670,000 boys who were called up. It's a large number, a significant number. So they came from all walks of lives, from cities, from towns, from farms, right across South Africa, and were thrown into adverse circumstances. These were boys of a variety of political beliefs. Many of the boys wanted to be there. Many of the boys didn't want to believe there. Many believed in the cause. Others felt resigned and compelled to go and felt that they couldn't get out of it. So they were reluctant being there. The alternative to not going was to be a conscientious objector, and there would be 6 years in jail. So there was a general air of resignation of, okay, we have to get on and do this, and before getting out of the army after 2 years and starting our real life.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to also touch on the characters and how you worked your way into building them or into making sure that they, we can all relate to what their real life experiences were. Yes.
I mean, there were some really interesting characters. Look, we were all very young, but one has to say that this was a functioning army. And by the time I got there in 1981, the army had been at war since 1966. So it was 15 years or so. So there were men in the army, instructors who trained us, and there was a very wide bunch of characters there. They weren't exactly the men that you would become friends with. These were instructors in charge of you. And the order of the day was very authoritative. You were there to be molded into a soldier, and you did as you were told. And within that environment, you had some very good leaders, very capable, very experienced, men who had been participating in the war for many years. And then you had some shockingly poor leaders. I mean, that was the reality of it. And a variety in the middle. But into this cauldron you were plunged, and apart from that, you now had all of your friends or your mates, boys you had just met, together in a bungalow of, let's say, 30 men, and you were forced to get on. And there was a very wide variety of guys there. You were forced to become tolerant, to fit in, and to be to accept people's personalities for what they were. And in that mixture, inevitably, you found friends.
I want to talk about the title. What is an inspiration behind this title, Bush Brothers, Life and Death Across the Border?
So eventually, after about a year's training, we were sent up to northern Namibia to participate in this low intensity war that was going on, where SWAPO, the military wing of SWAPO, was conducting a guerrilla war against the South African authorities. And at the time, SWAPO had guerrillas who were training in southern Angola across the border, and so the South African Army and Air Force went in to attack those enemy bases. I mean, this was a war that we're talking about. And we spent a year up there, and inevitably went through a very wide range of experiences participating in a war, some very, very difficult experiences under adversity. And in looking at this book, I've tried not to focus on the depressing, heavy side of it. I've also looked at the lighter side of the interactions between us, at the humor. Now, I know that there's not much humor to be found in a war, but inevitably when you are so tight with a group of mates and you are operating together and you're spending a lot of time in the bush and you're patrolling in the bush and your whole life is together and you're sleeping out there, it may be a cliche, but the truth is that you become brothers. You become very tight. You get to know one another. You look out for one another. And we went through this experience, and after our conscription was over, 2 years later, we then returned to our normal lives in the cities and farms and dorps of the country, and we never saw one another again. And I was reunited with some of them 35 years later. And we spent a weekend together and we got chatting about the old times. It was very interesting being with them. And a decision was made eventually to write a book. And the obvious title which came out, we discussed the name amongst ourselves, not only of the book, but of our veterans organization that we had formed. And the feeling amongst the men was, let's call it Bush, something about the bush, and brothers, Bush Brothers. And that is how it has come out.
You know what? It's a very fitting title. Thank you so much for talking to us, Steve de Witt. Congratulations on the book. An incredible read. And it is available at your nearest bookstore. It is called Bush Brothers, Life and Death Across the Border.